NBA free agency started off hot with quite a few notable moves that put the basketball world on notice, but after the first few days of the period, things have definitely cooled down a ton. A lot of teams have most of their rosters filled out, and a lot of the best players have signed new deals already, but there are definitely still spots available across the board, and there's also a ton of high quality talent somehow still available waiting to be signed. This brings us to today's video, where we'll be discussing 7 free agents that I not only believe should still be on an NBA roster, but are still absolutely capable of contributing to a team's rotation with the skill sets that they bring. I also want to make it clear that I'm not going to be discussing the notable restricted free agents that include Quentin Grimes, Jonathan Kuminga, Cam Thomas, and Josh Giddey, because their situations are intentionally playing out slowly to test the market, and a lot of them will have their offers matched by their original teams anyway down the line. Plus, I'm also not going to include Al Horford in today's video, because all reports seem to indicate that he will sign with the Golden State Warriors whenever Jonathan Kuminga's situation comes to a conclusion. Basically, this video is specifically for the free agents that have a lot less traction behind their availability. Now, the first player we'll be discussing today that I cannot believe is somehow still available is Chris Paul. Word on the street is that this upcoming season would be Chris Paul's last year in the NBA if he signs a contract, and after the career he's had, retirement is well earned. Paul is a lock for the Hall of Fame. He's one of the best point guards to ever step foot on a basketball court, and even in his old age, has still managed to play impactful basketball as a floor general and playmaker. He may be 40 years old, but he is absolutely worth taking a swing on for 1 year if you're a team with playoff aspirations and are in need of help in your backcourt. On top of the fact that he was still amongst the league leaders in assists this past year with the Spurs, he also managed to play all 82 games this season, proving he is still taking very good care of his body and can be consistently reliable as a leader. He's outstanding to have in the locker room, his court vision and instincts are still as sharp as ever, which makes the lives of your team's star players a lot easier, and he's not going to cost a lot, so I'm having a hard time envisioning an outcome where signing him wouldn't be worth it so he can have one last swan song. The next player we'll be discussing that is still somehow an available free agent is Russell Westbrook. The Russell Westbrook experience is always a wild ride, and we've known this for a while. He's been one of the most polarizing talents in the NBA for over a decade, and as he has aged, there have definitely been parts of his game that have been difficult to justify, such as how turnover-prone he still is, and how many defensive lapses he has, but the negativity towards him tends to get overblown, and there are still a lot of positives that come from having him in your rotation. For one, last year in Denver, he fully embraced being the team's 6th man, so he's not coming in expecting to be the one running the show anymore, and he even developed some solid chemistry next to Nikola Jokic of all people, so he's willing to adjust some things next to star players. He also still brings that same Russell Westbrook endless energy that can ignite a team, and as a passer, he absolutely still is outstanding at setting teammates up for easy looks. You have to accept that he's not going to be a consistent shooter and try to limit his erratic ways, because as someone who can run a second unit, there are very few other better backup point guards in the NBA right now. The next player we'll be discussing that is somehow still an available free agent is Malcolm Brogden. For most of his career, Malcolm Brogden has been one of the most efficient, poised, and steady scoring guards in the NBA, serving as a high-level secondary playmaker, and even winning 6th Man of the Year just 2 years ago. The NBA is also, unfortunately, very much a what have you done for me lately kind of league, and when you're coming off of a notably down year like Brogden is, that's all most people are going to be focusing on. Last season in Washington, he just could not stay healthy at all, dealing with an array of injuries ranging from ankle, foot, knee, and hamstring troubles, and those setbacks definitely affected his play on the court, because in the short time that he was able to play, he shot the ball worse than he ever has in his career, and his scoring took a sizable dip. Call me crazy, but I don't think one outlier season riddled with injuries is the new norm for a player like Brogden, who is also only 32 years old and should have quite a few years left ahead of him. He's a much better shooter than he showed this season. He has a lot of big game experience from his days with the Bucks, Pacers, and Celtics, and if he returns to form, he could end up being an absolute steal of a signing for a team looking to bolster their backcourt this season, because he's another player who likely won't cost a whole lot to bring in. The next player we'll be discussing that is somehow still an available free agent is Airness Coffee. Coffee isn't a big name like the first three guys we discussed today, but his game is perfect for the modern NBA, and it still feels like not enough people have caught on to that. He's spent 6 seasons with the Los Angeles Clippers, and his development has been a slow grind for sure, but this past year, he broke out as one of the best two-way wings off of a bench on any team, and the role he's embraced is one of the most important roles in a lineup. Coffee has become one of the better 3-and-D guys any team can have coming off of the bench, and honestly, if you put him in your starting lineup, he would probably fit right in. On the Clippers last year, he was averaging 10 points per game, shooting 47% from the field and 41% from 3. He competes hard on defense, and he's also 28 years old in the prime of his career, unlike a lot of the older veterans that are fizzling out that we're talking about today. You won't find a better time to add quality two-way role players than right now, with how dried up most payrolls are getting. So finding him and signing him on something like the mid-level exception would be a steal for whoever finally comes to their senses and goes through with it. The next player we'll be discussing today that is somehow still an available free agent is Ben Simmons. I know, nobody is buying Ben Simmons off-season hype anymore, trust me, I am very much with you in that boat. Once upon a time, Ben was an all-star two-way stud who was in the mix for the Defensive Player of the Year award, was ferocious attacking the basket, and had the court vision and passing IQ that was drawing LeBron James comparisons early in his career, but the days of him being in those conversations are long gone, and now he's fighting to even keep his NBA career alive. Yes, there are a lot of frustrating parts of his game that he refuses to address, including his unwillingness to shoot from outside of the paint and his lack of confidence, plus his nagging back injuries have definitely played a big part in the drastic regression he's gone through, but at this point, he needs to be viewed as someone that can play a reduced role off of a team's bench, and in that regard, there is still absolutely space for him in the NBA. Ben can grab a rebound and push the pace as a strong ball handler, and at 6'10", he's very tough to stop in transition. He's not an all-defense caliber defender anymore, but he still plays plus defense, and in Brooklyn this past season, he was averaging 7 assists per game, so his knack for finding the open man is still there. Bringing him in on a smaller contract and unleashing him on bench units should prove to be a worthwhile investment, as long as you're not unrealistically expecting him to go back to being the Ben Simmons of old. The next player we'll be discussing that is somehow still an available free agent right now is Payton II. GP2 is a player with a very specific skill set that just so happens to be a pathway to minutes at the NBA level. He is not going to put up numbers that catch your eye in the box score, and his game is definitely not flashy on film, but he's earned the trust of Warriors coach Steve Kerr for years for a reason. And that reason is that he is a warrior on the defensive end guarding the perimeter, and his energy off the ball is contagious. He rebounds well for a guard, he's a smart cutter, and is efficient finishing around the rim, so he does all of the dirty work you want from a role player. He also happens to bring championship pedigree to whoever signs him, and at 32 years of age would be a great veteran to have in the locker room. He may not be the most consistent three-point shooter, but he's also not a complete liability out there. The Warriors unfortunately have other priorities this offseason, so it's looking likely that he's not going to be re-signed there, but it still surprises me that he's struggling to find interest elsewhere. And finally, the last player we'll be discussing today that is somehow still an available free agent is Chris Boucher. Boucher is a unique talent who has been with the Toronto Raptors since their championship-winning 2019 season, but now at 32 years old, it's looking like he's going to need to relocate. He's a 6'9" forward with a 7'4" long wingspan that plays with great energy when he's out on the court and contributes on both sides of the ball. He generates quite a few deflections and blocks with that length, and on offense, he has a propensity for launching threes that he makes at an above-average clip. He's coming off of a season averaging 10 points per game in 17 minutes of playing time on average, which is a pretty impressive point-per-minute output, and the stretch four always proves to be an archetype NBA teams favor in their rotation, so even though it's been an uneventful free agency period for him so far, I do have confidence he will find a home eventually and carve out a role on a team's bench. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below which teams you think would be good fits for these players. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.